Hi babes, I know you want to grow your rubber plants to be as beautiful as these, as these here, or perhaps as this. Look at how beautiful, tall and majestic this ficus looks like. Well, the fact of the matter is that you cannot.
What?
Yes, you heard me right, you cannot. Because there is one thing that you probably have not been doing. And babes, I don't blame you because you don't find this information anywhere on the internet. This is probably going to be the first time you will hear someone say this about rubber plants. And without doing this, your rubber plants will grow very slowly. Like you will go months without any single growth on your rubber plant, despite you giving it fertilizer, maximum light, watering properly. It just wouldn't grow. I've been there before and it took me a while to discover, oh my goodness gracious, this is why my rubber plants aren't growing. And the moment I discovered it and fixed it, my rubber plants are always growing. In fact, my major issue right now is that they get too big. These two I chopped a few months ago and they've already started getting quite big. So by the time you watch this video from start to finish, you don't want to skip any part. I guarantee you, like, the only problem you have with your rubber plants is that they are growing too fast. Without much ado, let me reveal the one thing that a lot of people do not know about rubber plants, okay? And babes, I want you to come closer and listen to me so you don't miss out on this information. Come closer. Rubber plants will always go dormant. They will always go dormant, regardless of whether you're growing them in a temperate climate or a tropical climate. They will always go dormant. If you don't know what I mean by dormant, it's when a plant just stops growing, for certain reasons. Rubber plants, the way they are programmed in the wild, they are programmed to go dormant, right? So you have to actually get them out of dormancy or stimulate certain conditions to ensure that they grow all the time. If not, you're just going to have your rubber plant that has gone dormant and will not grow for months until you finally get the conditions right. Now, I'm going to tell you how to identify, and show you how to identify when your rubber plant has gone dormant or is just about going dormant, okay? And the key is to look at the growth sheet of your rubber plant. This is the growth sheet of your rubber plant, where the new growth starts from. This babe just produces beautiful new leaves, so her growth sheet is quite small, but I can bet that she's actively growing, and I'm gonna tell you why. This one over here, you can see this one has just produced two beautiful new leaves. This is actively growing. All these rubber plants with me, in fact every single rubber plant in my garden, is actively growing, and I know because of how the sheet looks like. So how does a dormant rubber plant sheet looks like? When your rubber plant is dormant, the growth sheet changes color. It stops being that vibrant red or that vibrant green, and it takes on like a duller brown darkish color. Once you start to notice it, I'm going to insert B-rolls. Once you start to notice, then that is your cue that your rubber plant has stopped growing. It's not gonna grow for a while. It has started going dormant. And I want to reiterate that this dormancy has nothing to do with winter, has nothing to do with the amount of light you give it. Now let's talk about why your rubber plant goes dormant and how to get it out of dormancy. Okay, I'm going to share a personal story, personal rubber plant story. So in Nigeria, we have a rainy season and we have a dry season. I've talked about this before, like 6 months of the rainy season and then 6 months of the dry season. So they're quite lengthy. But then I noticed something. I noticed that during the dry season, my rubber plants just didn't grow. They just did not grow. Like, no matter what I did, no matter how often I watered them, no matter the amount of light I gave them, they just didn't grow, and it used to mesmerize me because I believe that they love sunlight, they love bright light, so why aren't they growing? But then I noticed that during the start of the rainy season, they started to grow, which made me suddenly realize that these guys need rain. They need rainfall to awaken them. So rubber plants by nature, in the parts where they are native to, the tropics of like India and Southern Asia, these guys go dormant during the dry season. When things are a bit drought-like, they will stop growing. And I found that is true for a lot of tropical plants. When the seasons become drier, and by drier I do not mean the humidity levels, because in tropical countries humidity is always high, but when there's a prolonged absence of rainfall, some tropical plants will go dormant, particularly your rubber plants, right? But the moment rainfall splatters on their leaves, the moment it just starts to fall on their leaves, it activates something and they start growing. And the interesting thing about rubber plants is that when that dormant sheet eventually comes out of dormancy, the first leaf that comes out of it is going to be a bit malformed. You will see like a small leaf, and instead of it bringing out another leaf, it's going to bring out another sheet. I'll see if you can insert a picture so you can have a better understanding. But rain actually gets these guys out of dormancy, and they grow so fast during the rainy season. So you might be asking yourself, please, how does this apply to me? I live in a climate that is either very dry, we don't have a rainy season here, or I am growing my plants indoors. How does this apply to me? Well, babes, you don't need rain to stimulate growth on your rubber plants. You can easily mimic rain in your growing conditions. Just dump these girlies in the shower. Or if you have a hose, just shower them regularly. Shower them, and they will start growing. That is what I usually do during the dry season. So right now we're entering the dry season, but I want these girlies to keep growing because I have plans for them. I want to propagate and sell them. So what I do during the dry season is I shower them. Just get yourself a hose and just shower these girlies. And for you girlies growing your rubber plants indoors, just take them in the shower and shower them. I will say you should exercise caution. You don't want to shower them as frequently as obviously somebody who grows them outdoors will. I'll say maybe give them a shower once every 2 weeks, just to ensure that they are actively growing. Also, to prevent overwatering, do this when their soil is dry or when they are thirsty. Just dump them in the shower, that shower effect stimulates rainfall, and it automatically activates them and they start growing. Babes, if you try this and you do this religiously, your rubber plants will always be growing. Always be growing, like they will grow almost taller than your roof. I can guarantee you that. But babes, that's not all. I want to emphasize that other things need to be taken into consideration as well and need to be applied so you can have like those optimum results. Okay, I'm telling you about. The first thing is light, because if you are showering your rubber plant and you're not providing it with adequate light, it's still not going to grow. So all these things have to go hand in hand. Okay, babes? Now, speaking of light, when it comes to rubber plants, I don't know how in the hell that these guys were categorized as low light plants. For you guys watching this in the States or in the temperate parts of the world, low light? This is a frigging tree. I forgot. I don't think you guys realize that this is a tree. In this part of the world, I'm going to insert videos. These guys grow into giant. They get so huge and massive. In fact, it is advised you don't plant them next to your house or a building because their roots are so aggressive that they can mess up with the plumbing and mess up with the foundation of your house. They grow very big and they're epiphytic in nature. Like they produce this very large, huge area roots. Like they grow bonkers. So these are by no means plants. These are not by no means low light plants, babes. These are plants that can take full sun. Yes, you heard me. Every single variant, even the variegated one, There is no rubber plant that cannot take full sun. Naturally, if you've been growing your rubber plant in shade or you've been growing it indoors for a prolonged period of time, you're gonna need to acclimate it to be able to take full sun. But every single rubber plant is a full sun plant. They are not low light plants. So I always tell my clients, if you want to grow these indoors, right next to a window. Some of you, you're placing your rubber plant adjacent to a window. I'm like, madam, right next to a window, or you get a grow light, the high spectrum, a good spectrum, and pump it right there. These, the more bright light they receive, the better, okay? But I do want to say something. You can look here, you can look at, this is a classic case. These guys can get sunburnt. Look at this, babes. This leaf is quite sunburnt, okay? But I'm going to tell you how that happens. If you are giving these guys a lot of light and you're exposing them to full sun, please ensure that they are well hydrated. Please ensure that they are watered regularly, because if you do not, they will burn. That's one thing I've realized. If these, especially these girlies in pots, the more established ones, you know, they can take the sun and still be drought tolerant to a certain extent. But these girlies in pots that are small and are not established, if you're not watering them regularly when exposed to full sun or very bright light, then they're gonna burn, or their leaves will just have this folded, their leaves will just fold up like this taco bell leaves, and taco leaves, and it will not look like a cute sight. So the more light exposure you give them, the more you should water them, okay? Which leads me to watering of your rubber plants. Babes, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but rubber plants love to stay moist. In fact, your ficuses in general, even your fiddly fig tree, that plant loves to stay moist as well. Your ficus or tree, you need to realize that these are trees. And one thing I've come to realize in the plant world is anything that produces a lot of leaves, like leaves that just produces a lot of leaves and the leaves are big, they need to be watered frequently, because leaf production requires water. Like, for your plants to produce leaves, they need water. So for these plants that produce huge tree-like leaves, they prefer things a bit on the moist side. To also blow your mind, this is growing entirely in cocoa coir. I've shared this before in some of my videos. This is growing entirely in cocoa coir, just cocoa coir, and you all know how moisture retentive cocoa coir can be. Yet babes is living her best life. She's happy. So if you are growing these guys outdoors, because I grew them outdoors, then you can actually get away with keeping them moist. The same applies if you're growing them in a very sunny climate or like very dry conditions. You can get away with keeping them moist, right? However, if you're growing them indoors, I'll say, okay, let's be wary, because then it might lead to root rot. What I would advise you, water when dry. Okay, water when dry, but do not allow to stay dry for too long. Some of you all are really stretching the limits of your rubber plants. You're leaving them, because they can be quite drought tolerant, you're leaving them to stay dry for too long. I've talked about, just because some plants are drought tolerant doesn't mean they want to be kept in drought-like conditions. Water these girlies when dry. Another thing that will ensure that you have optimum growth: fertilize your rubber plants. Again, I have to remind you that this is a tree. This is a tree. This is a tree. You're growing a miniature tree rather, in your homes, and trees need a lot of fertilizer, and your rubber plant is absolutely no exception. Fertilize these girlies efficiently. I will say each time you water. This one that is growing entirely in cocoa coir, I make sure I fertilize her each time I water this plant. And you also want a well-balanced fertilizer. You don't want a fertilizer that just has nitrogen. Okay, I've always talked about this on my page. Ensure that you always read the label of every fertilizer to look at the nutritional content that fertilizer has. Some of you are fertilizing your plants with just seaweed fertilizer that has like very low nutrients, and you're wondering why your rubber plant hasn't grown. Let's do better, girls. For this, guys, you need a balanced fertilizer. Your Miracle Grow 20-20-20 or 10-10-10s, something that is high in nitrogen and also high in like potassium and other elements, because these guys, apart from having these leaves, they also have tough stems. They have tough stems, they have tough petioles. You know, they need nutrients to be able to provide them with the structure and the support that they need. So a good fertilizer is imperative, okay, and a balanced fertilizer, and you want to ensure that they are properly fertilized all the time. Now, if you want your rubber plants to branch out, like this auntie here, for example, she's just growing straight. So when she's gotten to a certain height, I'm gonna chop her so she can branch out like this babe here in the background. I just want to show her. By the way, I underplanted this rubber plant with so many things. She grows outdoors in my garden, but I wanted to bring her outside so you guys will have a better look and a better appreciation. Now, if you want a rubber plant that will just branch out, very easy, just chop her off, you know, from the top here. Just give it a good chop. Do this like in the growing season. For you guys in the northern hemisphere or in the hemispheres, that would be like your spring, summer. You don't want to do this in winter where the plant is struggling to have some energy. And then also when you have chopped your ficuses, and this is true with every plant, if you've chopped them and you want them to branch out, that means you need to ensure that you are fertilizing that plant even more, because remember, it is now bringing out two branches. So it requires even more energy and even more strength. Okay, so again, importance of fertilizer. All right, I guarantee you, babes, if you do all these things I've mentioned, you know, you try to shower your rubber plants regularly, you give it abundant light, you know, you ensure that you water regularly, or you keep it moist if you're growing them outdoors, and then, you know, you chop it, you know, cut it every now and then for a fuller look, you will have a beautiful, bountiful, fast growing rubber plant that will give you so much joy. Okay, all right, so I have to end this video because it's about to rain. It's currently the rainy season in this country, and at this point I'm sick and tired of it. It rains all the time. I'm using artificial light just so that I can actually have a video that I can post and it's not too dark. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it informative. If you did, babes, please like and share, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.